Good afternoon, everybody. I know that it has just hit 3 o'clock, but we're just going to give everybody a couple more minutes just to join the session. So I'll come back to you in a couple more minutes. Okay, brilliant. So welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining us again on City Live. For those of you that haven't joined us before, we've been doing these kind of virtual events now since the middle of May now, so they've been getting better and better as they go along. So I hope you enjoy this one. For those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Olivia, and I look after the London showroom in Clerkenwell. And I'm joined today by Ursula. So Ursula is our design sales manager, and we're going to be talking today to Stacey Sheppard. So Stacey is a founder of the award-winning interiors blog, The Design Shepherd. So Stacey is a freelance writer and blogger, and she specialises specifically within the interior design world. And she kind of looks after lots of different areas, including kind of bathrooms, kitchens, floors, wall claddings, kind of every kind of aspect of interior design. But she has a specific kind of interest in residential spaces. So this is our kind of fourth event as part of the Summer Design Festival. So Stacey is our kind of fourth interiors specialist. And we're going to be talking to Stacey about her kind of journey in terms of creating her successful blog, where Stacey gets her inspiration from before she begins writing. And we're also going to be not looking at Stacey's home, but we're going to be talking about Stacey's home and kind of where she gets her interior design trends from. And just a very quick reminder, if I could ask everybody just to make sure you've got your microphone switched off and your video switched off, because we are going to be looking at some kind of visuals as well throughout the session, so it just allows it to run nice and smoothly. I have recorded this session as well, so if anybody wants the recording, then just let me know and I can send it on to you. And it'll be myself and Ursula doing the kind of interview today. We will have some time at the end, so if you wanted to ask any questions, then do feel free to either write them into the chat or unmute yourself and ask away freely. I'm going to hand over to Ursula to ask the first question, and we'll go from there. But welcome, and thank you again, Stacey, for kind of taking part in our session today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Olivia. Yes, thank you everybody for joining, and welcome to our fourth event in the Design Festival. It's so exciting, and I am really pleased and really excited to welcome Stacey today. For those of you that may be aware of Stacey's blog, you might be really excited also, but there may be some of you today that don't quite know anything about interior design blogging and may not have heard of Stacey's blog. So Stacey, I'm going to hand that over to you to really introduce yourself and also just introduce the blog, and yes, tell us about what you do.
Okay, so I started my blog in 2009, so starting to feel really old in terms of the blogging online world now. It's been going for quite a long time. The reason I started the blog is because I actually started out my career working for magazines. So I was staff writer for Kitchen and Bathroom Designer magazine, which many of you probably know. And then in 2008, when the financial crisis hit, I was made redundant from there. It was a brilliant job, absolutely loved it. Probably my favourite job so far, apart from writing my blog. And I went on to write for lots of other magazines, writing on lots of different topics, but nothing really lit me on fire like residential interior design did. And it was whilst I was in my next job, I met a girl who was writing a fashion blog, and I'd never heard of a blog at the time. I had no idea what a blog was. But when I found out, I thought, yeah, that's interesting. While I'm not able to write about design in my career, I will start a blog and see where that takes me. Initially, I only really started the blog as a way to sort of document all of my ideas and things that I wanted to write about, and I wanted to keep up with the industry while I wasn't writing about design. So I wasn't expecting that many people to read my blog. It was more kind of a portfolio for myself for when I wanted to get back into writing for other magazines. But over time, the readership of my blog grew and my social media following grew. And it got to the point where the blog was its own kind of media outlet in its own right. So I didn't actually really need to go back into writing for a magazine. I just carried on writing for my blog. And it's won awards and is regularly ranked in the top 10 interior design blogs in the UK. So yeah, it's kind of become its own little media outlet now.
Amazing.
It's brilliant. It's fantastic. And Stacey, obviously, I know you've probably, the next question you've mostly answered quite a lot of actually, but in terms of kind of beforehand, in terms of your career, before your blog kind of became such a big part of what you do, how did you start out, and what kind of experiences have you got that's kind of led you to where you are now?
It all happened by accident, to be honest. So growing up, I was interested in interior design. I liked to move all my stuff around in my room when I was younger, but it wasn't something that I was really aware of, and I'd never considered getting into it as a career at all. So what I actually loved growing up was languages. So all the way through school and at university, I studied languages. I did French and German and European studies. I got into the industry completely by accident. So I decided I wanted to be a translator. And then in my final year at university, I did a module in translating and interpreting and realized, nah, this is not what I want to do. So I had a bit of a crisis and went home, moved back in with my parents while I tried to work out what I wanted to do. Did a few jobs using my languages, but there was nothing really there that made me think, yeah, well, this is what I want to do for a career. And then I saw a job advertised locally for an international magazine. Like, I live in a tiny town in Devon, like a really small town. And there was an international kitchen and bathroom magazine that was being run there. So I applied for a job just to work in the advertising department to get the advertising copy in. And I started off doing that. And that was when I started to obviously get more interested in kitchens and bathrooms. But the job was, I don't want to sound bad, but it was quite boring. So I approached the editor and just asked him if he needed any help writing the magazine and if I could do some research for him, because I was really interested in some of the topics. And luckily he said yes. So I started helping to prepare one of the columns in the magazine. And eventually I was sent on a feature writing course. And so I started writing features for the magazine as well. And that's really where my interest in interiors came from. And I kind of got into it and then became interested. So it all happened by complete accident, really.
I love that. I think so many things in life happen that way. And I think so many people as well, if there's sort of anybody, I don't want to say like anybody younger, but of any age as well, that is kind of new into the design industry. I think it's one of those things where wherever you are within the design industry, whether you're writing about it, you're designing, or you're in sales, or any kind of area of the design industry, it's one of those things that you can come into at any stage of life. And you know, I think it's so interesting where you say it's something that you kind of accidentally happened upon and then found yourself in and then loved it and was immersed by this amazing industry and the sort of love of the creativity. And
well, that's what I was going to say. Normally when you thrive in something, it's because you genuinely have
an interest in it,
a passion for it,
absolutely.
And that's obviously kind of where it's you know, grown from, isn't it?
So true. Because I started out, I went to university and I was studying philosophy and criminology, and I kind of went because I was told by my teachers in high school, you've got to go and you've got to get a degree. No matter what happens in life, you have to get a degree. So I just was like, okay, I'll just do that. That's really fun. And I had no idea what I was doing at uni. I was like, I'm not going to graduate with this and then end up, I don't want to be a criminologist or a philosopher. Like, what am I doing? But I think a lot of people start off that way, where they kind of just start one way and then, you know, you can change and there's no rules, is there? And that's what I think I love about the design industry, is you meet so many different people from so many different walks of life. And I think that's what makes it interesting and ever evolving, because it's not like everybody has started off on the same path. It's like everybody has all these different experiences that really help to create and mold this industry of all the different styles and trends and experiences throughout it all. So that's really interesting. But I just want to touch back on, you said at the beginning that you are an award-winning, your blog is award-winning, and I know that you won the Amara Interiors 2018. I just wanted to find out a bit more about that. Can you tell us a bit more about that and your experience of what it was like when you won and when you applied for the award, and just share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, of course. Well, when the Amara Awards first came along, I think everybody in the interior design blogging industry was just really happy that there was awards that focus solely on interiors blogging, because there's a lot of blogging awards and they feature, you know, mostly fashion or lifestyle, and it was quite hard to work your way into those awards as an interiors blogger. So to have an awards ceremony just for us was really, really good. And my blog was nominated for a number of years, and I never quite made it into the shortlist. And the year that I won, 2018, I was pretty close to thinking to myself, okay, this is the last year that I'm going to accept a nomination, because I'd had so many times where I'd entered the awards or been nominated for the awards and not quite made the shortlist. And so when I did make the shortlist, I was over the moon, because obviously for us to be made, you know, enter the awards in the first place, make the shortlist, is just such a big achievement and such a validation from people who read your blog, your peers in the industry. It's just such a nice feeling to be recognised. But I absolutely did not think that I would win whatsoever. I went along to the awards ceremony and I was thinking, oh, this is such a lovely event. It's such a lovely occasion. I can sit back and enjoy it without any nerves, because I'm not going to win. The competition for the category that I was in, the best design inspiration, was always the most sort of fiercely fought category. There were always more blogs in that category for a start, and the quality of them is always so good. So there was no doubt in my mind that I wasn't going to walk away with that award. So I turned up to the event, and I'd taken a friend with me who also writes a blog, and we were just enjoying talking to everybody at the ceremony, just wandering around. And then we got to sit down to actually have the results announced. And it then dawned on me that actually there were 5 blogs in the shortlist, so I had a pretty good chance of winning. And that's when the nerves really kicked in, and I thought, oh no, what if I do actually win? That's going to be really, really nerve-wracking. And then they called my name, so I sort of trotted up to pick up the award, and it was very surreal, because, like I said, I've been nominated a number of years and not made it. So that was a real highlight of my blogging career.
Oh, fantastic. It's always when you kind of least expect it, isn't it? When you said that you kind of went there and you had no expectations, there were no nerves. And it always is the way that,
I know.
you know, with no expectations always comes something, doesn't
You
it?
probably enjoyed the evening so much more as a result of not having
Definitely.
until the moment when you sat down and realised, oh, I could actually win this.
Definitely.
But how amazing though to be able to win an award, and that's such a recognition of the work that you'd put in for the previous, like since 2009, because that was 2008, so almost a decade at that point.
Yeah.
It must have been just incredible to just have that recognition of being able to be seen and be heard, and everything that you're putting out there into the internet, into the world online world of design inspiration, and the amount of people that you would have inspired from that blog, just to have something there that you can hold and it's a recognition.
Knowing that people are kind of reading it and they are engaging with it and they're visiting your website and your blog, and they're, you know what I mean, they're
gives
engaging.
you such motivation to go on, doesn't it, really?
Absolutely. And just kind of going back to the blog itself, where do you kind of get your inspiration from? So before you start writing a piece, is there anywhere in particular that you kind of take your inspiration from before you start writing?
I think because of my background in journalism, I read a lot of other blogs, a lot of other magazines, a lot of websites. So I think because I read so much, the ideas just come. I kind of like look for patterns, maybe. Like I don't so much write about my own projects. I write more about like products that I found that I liked or trends that I've spotted. So a lot of it comes from sort of like noticing patterns or you know, joining the dots in what I can see that's going to sort of like bubble up from the surface of the industry. And I think that's what I enjoy about it most, is just sort of like gathering that information together and then putting it forward in a kind of clear and concise way that people can digest it easily.
Sounds like you've got like a tactic and you've got your strategy of being able
to... I'm a little bit of a perfectionist as well, and a lifelong learner. So like if I'm going to write an article for a magazine, I'm one of those people, like if I'm interviewing someone, I need to read every interview they've ever done before so that I can come up with new questions.
But that's also the best thing to do, I think. If you're putting something out there onto your blog, you want it to work well with what's out there, so people have maybe read something similar about that topic before, and then it's almost it's initiating a further conversation about that topic, but again, it's a fresh look on that topic. So I think that's such a great way to be able to sort of sit down and begin your starting point of what you're going to write about.
And also it's quite interesting as well, because obviously you're a blogger that writes about interior design rather than being specifically an interior designer.
And I think that's quite rare. I think a lot of the other sort of top bloggers are interior designers or stylists, or who've got a degree in architecture or some kind of qualification that kind of qualifies them to be a blogger. So I've always had a bit of imposter syndrome because I kind of felt a bit unqualified to write about it. But I think a lot of the people that read my blog maybe like that, because I'm not, you know, the typical expert. I'm kind of sharing it from my perspective as someone who's looking outside in. And I think sometimes that can make it a little bit more relatable.
Absolutely.
You can be a lot more subjective, can't you, in a way? And you can talk about lots of different trends that are kind of currently happening now. We've got some, I think we might have some images actually of some biophilic design and different things coming into kind of spaces at the moment. And you can talk about all of those different trends that are kind of happening. Whereas there might be some interior designers that maybe, you know, feel a little bit, they have their schemes, or they have their trends that they normally work with, you know, and they might feel slightly constrained, maybe. I mean, I don't know, but it means that you can be a lot more subjective, and you can
I mean, I don't write about any one particular style. So obviously you've got a lot of bloggers who might focus on Scandinavian style interiors or industrial interiors, and I've always kind of covered pretty much everything, really. If something's got a good design story behind it, then I want to write about it. So for me, the storytelling aspect of it is always quite important. And so if I discover a nice new brand or a nice product range, and decide that I want to interview the designer, that's always kind of a big part of it for me, because I don't really feel that you can 100% appreciate or understand a product until you've heard the story behind it, how it came about, what the initial ideas were, what was that designer trying to achieve with that product or that service. I think that's really important to sort of like get behind the scenes and really understand where that's come from. And it also helps you to understand the value in that product. It's very easy to say, well, that's a really expensive designer thing. But once you've understood that someone's like maybe crafted that by hand and how many hours it took them or how many years of development it's taken them to get to that point, then it's a lot easier to understand sort of like the value proposition of that product.
And that probably comes from your journalism background, where you're trying to uncover that story of the person, of the product, of the design, whereas an interior designer blogging is more designing about a space rather than the actual background story of how that design curated or where the product came from. So that's probably comes so well from your journalism background, because you're used to sort of uncovering all of the details of the story, and it's a storytelling process.
Absolutely.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
I think as well, if you work in the industry, it's very easy to assume that everyone knows what you know.
Sure.
And I've had lots of conversations where people have been like, oh, it never occurred to me to mention that because I just thought people knew that. Whereas I'm coming from a point of view where I don't know everything. So I have a lot of questions, and it's maybe easier for me to think of those questions than it is for someone who actually works in the industry.
Absolutely. Yeah. And tell us a little bit about your own home as well, because we're intrigued. You're surrounding yourself with all these storytelling about design and stuff and products, but about your own home, do you take away your own inspiration that you write about and take it into your own spaces and environments? And do you kind of stick to a style, or do you mix it up a little bit?
It's really hard, actually, when you get so much input and so much inspiration constantly. It's really hard to know what your own style is, and for years I just didn't know. Like every time I saw a new style, I thought, oh, I love that, yeah, maybe that's my style. And I was I've got kind of a bit of like analysis paralysis, I think they call it, where I just didn't know what was my style. And I went to a trade show one year, and I was talking to a lady who had a really specific style, and she was selling cushions and furniture. And I just mentioned to her that I don't know what my style is. And she was like, well, what do you mean you don't know what your style is? You just pick the bits you like and you put it all together, and that's your style, and it will work because you've chosen everything to put together in your home.
Yeah.
And that kind of gave me a sense of freedom then. I thought, oh, okay, it's me that ties it all together. So as long as I like the stuff that I put in my house, it will work for me.
Yeah.
But up until that point, I was very, very stuck on what my style was, because every week there was something new that I was checking out and looking at. So it's only recently that I've kind of brought a bit of myself into our home. So I live, like I said, I live in Dartmouth in Devon. So it's like a really, really small little town. I live with my husband and our two little girls who are 4 and 6. So at the moment, it's all about the kids. So we haven't managed to we started to put our own stamp on it, but then kids came along and it's all sort of on hold a little bit. But I kind of take inspiration from my own home, from whatever I'm liking at the moment. Like, for example, I painted my bedroom like really, really dark navy just a couple of years ago, and then that kind of became a really big thing. Especially for kitchens, like navy blue kitchens, and blue being colour of the year last year, was it, I think. So yeah, like I'd already gone down the blue route in my bedroom. My living room, I went down the whole green, really nice, deep, dark green colour. But that was back in like 2013, 2012. So again, it was before all these things became trendy. So I never consider myself to be like my home isn't what you'd imagine an interior design blogger to be like. People always say, I'd love to see inside your house, but it's just a normal house. It's just, just a normal house that works for us. It's not Instagram worthy or anything like that, but I'm getting to grips with it now and working out what my style is. So it is becoming easier.
There's no rules with style, is there? There's just
no.
And I think that's the hardest thing, especially when you are immersed in this industry where you're immersed with different styles all day long, that you feel constricted to these rules of style. But actually, style is personal. It's a very personal thing, and you could walk into somebody else's home and think, I'm not sure about this and I'm not sure about that, but actually that's totally fine, because that's their style. And I think that's the amazing thing about interiors, is that it's so personal. It's such a tailored thing to the person who's living in that environment. And you know, whether you love lots of bursts of color or just plain white or deep dark blues and greens, I think it just, or you like to mix it all up, I think that's what makes it interesting. And
I mean, it's the same thing that's come up in all of our talks, actually, is that interiors is so subjective, and obviously there are trends and there are certain colours and certain styles that come into play. But actually, especially when it comes to your own home, it's about actually putting things in your home that you like and that you enjoy being around. And a lot of the trends now are all about kind of bringing the outdoors in and looking at sustainability and making sure that what we have in our homes is potentially natural. And those things will always be there, but you have to live in it, don't you? So it's about creating a space you feel that reflects how you want to feel in that space. Obviously, that's very specific to residential. But yeah, it's really interesting.
I think style as well can come from the fact that you might have pieces or artifacts or objects that have a meaning to you, and they might not be stylish or trendy, but you know, it might be your great grandmother's old clock, and actually it doesn't work at all in your brand new build flat, but it probably works in like a Victorian house, but it's a meaning to you, and you make the surrounding and the environment work with that object or that piece or that wallpaper, even though it might not actually be technically, you know, talking to an interior designer, it doesn't work, but there's no rules. And I think that's what makes it so fab, is that, you know, with you not having the sort of interior design qualification, you're able to write and blog and take inspiration without the rules. And I think that's what makes it relatable, because people don't want to live by the rules within their own environments, within their own homes. They want to kind of break the rules and be like, well, do you know what? It doesn't go, but I love it. And I'm going to have it anyway.
And otherwise, I think you really risk coming up with kind of like the perfect Pinterest or Instagram inspired home.
Absolutely.
If you don't have anything that's personal to you, it does end up looking like every other, you know, trendy home at the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can't really feel at home. I mean, again, we're talking very specifically residential wise, but that's what we're talking about, and it's true. It's, you know,
exactly.
you have to be. You have to feel comfortable, don't you? Especially in your own space.
You do.
And just going back, Stacey, to kind of where you kind of get your inspiration from, in kind of reference to design festivals. Obviously, there are lots of design festivals both in the UK and internationally. Are there any specific design festivals that you kind of visit on a regular basis and take inspiration from?
I tried to get up to London Design Festival. Maison and Objet in Paris is one of my favourite ones. And I'd like to say Milan, but I've only actually been once. So I would like to get back to Milan again, but sometimes they're just so huge that the prospect of trying to get around them and cover it all is quite daunting.
Do you find that they're quite useful in terms of kind of inspiring and kind of providing you with content, or do you find it a little bit, it's just too much, I kind of want to...
Oh, it's totally overwhelming,
on my own pace kind of thing.
So I've been to plenty of design festivals before, where I've spent a couple of days there trying to get around and seen everything, picked out loads of new trends that I want to write about, and then I get home and I'm so exhausted that I can't even pick up the laptop to start writing about them.
I completely understand.
You just have to leave time to let it all process a little bit, because it's very overwhelming.
Let it sink in, don't you? I love the way that design festivals always are set up, though, in a way that it's just like, you might be seeing something that you've seen before, but you're seeing it with fresh eyes, and you're seeing it in an environment where, or you're speaking to somebody who is directly involved with that product or with that brand, and you get this immediate new inspiration for that style or that product or that brand because of the person that you've spoken to. And it's a really interactive thing. And I just hope with everything that's going on at the moment that we'll be able to come back to that type of festival again and be able to have those certain types of interactions, because as much as it's great to be able to find inspiration on things like Pinterest or being able to go into a showroom, sometimes just having that interaction with the person who's able to tell you the story can really be
definitely
as well.
Yeah, because obviously at the moment, obviously Clerkenwell Design Week this year was cancelled or moved to next year, and London Design Festival is happening, but it's happening in a digital way. So I'd actually be interested to find out how you feel about if, for example, the future of design festivals. I don't think it will be, but if, for example, some design festivals decide to take more of a digital kind of form, do you think that would be kind of difficult for you, or do you think that that would still be quite inspirational? No?
I'm actually really excited about that prospect. So, like I said, I don't live in London. So for people who live in London, London Design Festival's quite a nice thing because you can pop out, you can go and look around, you can go home, rest up. But for me, it's like a massive thing to come up, stay for a few days in an area that I probably don't know because I don't know London that well. And then to try and get across the city is just a massive hassle when you don't know the city that well. So the prospect of having a digital design festival is actually really appealing to me because it means that I can just do away with all of that and just have someone directing it a bit more and showing me the things that, not necessarily that I want to see, but, in an easy to navigate way without having the whole sort of effort of coming up to London, because it's a huge monumental thing.
Absolutely. And obviously the way that people are working at the moment, we are working more digitally. I think people are kind of accepting of that now. It's interesting because I just wanted to get your take on it, because obviously I know, we're not participating in London Design Festival this year. We did last year, but obviously I know their plans for this year is to make it digital.
I mean, normally I'm all for the in-person thing, because of what I've been doing, working online for over a decade now. I'm feeling a bit of the digital fatigue. And when lockdown happened and everything was happening over Zoom or Microsoft Teams, it just didn't feel the same to me. I love in-person meetings, but I think something like a design festival, it's much more democratic if it's available online as well, because when you think about it, going to Milan, it's such a huge outlay, a huge expense for people to go over there. And if you're not working for a company that's paying for you to go over there, it can be a barrier for a lot of people who want to go and see what's going on and experience that for themselves. So having a digital option, even if it runs alongside the physical festival, I think is a really good thing.
Like you say, even if it's in addition to, because there'll be some people that would say something different. They would say, no, I like to be there in person, I like to speak to somebody, I like to see the product and feel it, etc. And I kind of understand both sides. So for them to both be running in parallel.
No, I'd love that. If they could both happen at the same time, that would be brilliant.
Would be ideal,
It just gives people a second avenue to be able to not miss out.
Because also you can't see everything. London Design Festival is so enormous. There'll be hundreds of events happening all over the city, thousands even, and a lot of them are scheduled at the same time. So you really have to pick what you want to go and see. So if there were, if it was recorded live as well, and you could log in later and check out all the stuff you'd missed, that would be brilliant.
Absolutely.
In your own kind of time as well. Because time is precious to everybody, isn't it? I mean, always, but at the moment even more so.
Absolutely.
So it gives people that flexibility in terms of checking in and managing their day and their time.
And I just wanted to kind of go off on a total tangent as well, just whilst we have you, to get your opinion on something. So sustainability is obviously a huge topic at the moment, and it's a main focus, and I think it's been really brought into focus more so in the past couple of years than ever before, in everything, in terms of food, in terms of what we're eating, what we're wearing, and also now how we're styling and designing our homes and our buildings as well. But I've got a couple of friends that openly admit when they turned vegan that they were doing it because it was part of this trend, which each to their own, but What would you say when it comes to sort of sustainability within design? Would you say that it's now a focus, or do you think that a lot of people are turning to sustainable products or sustainable designs because it's now a trendy thing to do rather than actually something that we should be focusing on?
For me, I quite often focus on what's happening in the industry rather than consumers, because there's a lag of a couple of years, I think, before, we'll be writing about it in the industry, and then it will take a good 2 or 3 years to sort of come down to consumers. So you can see that with some of the interior trends, like colours, for example, like grey became really big, and we were all talking about it in interiors. And then by the time consumers caught on, the interiors industry had moved on and it was the next colour. And I think with sustainability, it may be that consumers are now getting on board because everyone's realised that we've reached the tipping point. Like, we can't continue like this. Our overconsumption is really threatening the planet right now, and we really need to do something about it. And consumers are aware of that now. But I think in the industry, it's moved on from that, and sustainability isn't the main focus now. I think we're moving more towards discussions about the circular economy. Yeah. So moving away from this linear economic model of kind of take, make, waste, and fast consumption. We're moving away from that because we've realised that we've literally reached the end of the line. And companies now are looking at more circular models of consumption. So all the R's, so the reuse, remanufacture, recycle, all those kind of things. How can we increase the value life cycle of the products that we're using, and how can we deal with the waste that we're creating? So we're seeing a lot of companies now that are making their sort of sustainability mission, the end point of it is to get to a circular model by sort of, I don't know, in the next 10 years. We've kind of been given themselves a deadline of like 2030. IKEA's just started working with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, for example, who are the real pioneers of the circular economy. So they've given themselves the goal of 2030 to get a fully circular model. So they reduce their waste right down. They refurbish all of their furniture that once you've done with your IKEA furniture, you can take it back to the store. They'll refurbish it and sell it on, and just try and reduce the amount of waste that is going to landfill, because it's insane. I think I read it was something like 300,000 tons of furniture ended up in landfill last year.
It's crazy. And one really kind of interesting point actually that you've raised there, or that I've thought about when you were just talking, is that, do you think that could be detrimental to trend? Because obviously trends are something that come in and people think, oh, I love that new style of sofa, or that new style of lampshade, or whatever it is. I think, oh, we'll get rid of this one, we'll get a new one in. So do you think that it could be something that will affect how often and how reoccurring trends are in the market?
To be honest, I've not really thought about it from that point of view, but yeah, I do think it will affect it, definitely, because we have to slow down the pace. We can't just get new cushions every season and chuck them out. Like, it's a great way to redo your interior and to keep things fresh and new, but it's just terribly wasteful and bad for the environment. And I think there'll be a lot more focus on authenticity as well, because when you're following these trends so quickly, like I really liked copper when copper became, the metal of the moment, and I thought, right, I'm not going to change my mind on this. I really like copper. Then brass came in and became the next hot thing, and it only took a few months before I was like, yeah, actually, I prefer brass now. But we have to stop and think about the things that we're buying. I think there's going to be a massive trend for conscious consumption. And I think people, especially after what we've just been through, the last few months of lockdown, I think people really took the time to sit back and think about where they're going, what they're doing, what do they want out of life. I mean, not only they were looking at their homes because they were, I don't want to say stuck in their homes, they were safe at home. And it gave them a real chance to look at their homes and their interiors and work out, is this working for me? Does this serve me? Do I like spending time in this space? And I think we're actually going to see a massive boom at the moment in the home interiors industry, as people realise that we've always known that homes should be our sanctuary. It should be our safe space where we feel good and that our home is good for our well-being and it's good for our mental health. But we've all been so busy, like working, enjoying our outside activities, you know, socializing, eating out, that I don't think we've given our homes as much focus as we perhaps should. And now that we're faced with the potential of more local lockdowns and this kind of thing happening more often, people are really starting to think that they need to create a home that they love, that makes them feel good, that functions like they need it to. And I think that's going to play into the whole trends slowing down as well, because once you're buying things that really work for you and not just because it's blue and velvet, then you won't need to change it so often. And I think it will be good for the planet, it will be good for us. And the industry will find other ways to adapt. There'll be other things that can come in and fill that gap. We're not going to stop buying stuff.
No, absolutely. And in terms of kind of the quality of things as well, we might find that the quality of cushions and fabrics and you know bedding and whatnot, gets better because it's been made to actually last for a longer period of time rather than just kind of throw away kind of.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
It's really interesting, and I hope that it does go down. I mean, I'm not really one to talk because I like to, in terms of my clothing, I buy a lot of clothes, but recently, I don't know if it's a result of coronavirus or a result of, you know, being indoors and me thinking about things more, perhaps it is, but I've been very selective now in terms of what I'm buying, both in terms of at home and what I'm wearing, my clothes. I'm trying to wear things in different ways and just be a little bit more aware, I suppose, of kind of, you know, things I'm just kind of buying endlessly. Because it's so easy to do because, you know, as you say, you're on Pinterest or Instagram and you're looking at these kind of ideal spaces and ideal clothes, and it makes you want to buy things, doesn't it? And that's what it's there for. But it could be.
I think people are going to focus more on quality. Like you say, I think you're going to want things to last and you're going to want to be able to repair them. So another trend, along with conscious consumption, is I really think we're going to be changing the model a bit and flipping the product-based model more over to a service-based model. So what we're starting to see now is companies taking the initiative and moving more from sort of like we sell products to we are going to rent you products. So last year, I think it was Made.com started to sort of float the idea that they might start renting furniture. IKEA have talked about leasing kitchens instead of buying them. And there's a number of really innovative companies that are starting to spring up across the world now that are renting home, you know, home furniture and home equipment so that you don't need to buy it. And what that does is it releases the consumer from the burden of having to decide what to do with that product when it comes to the end of its life. So instead of us going, oh, like my washing machine's broken, I need to get rid of this, it needs to go to landfill, it puts the onus back on to the manufacturer. So when you're renting it, if it breaks, they take it back and they get you a new one. It's then up to them to remanufacture that, to repair it and get it back into circulation so they can rent it to someone else. So again, it ends the cycle of that linear consumption of take, make, waste. It's not all going to landfill because the manufacturer is recalling all of that, the materials that have gone into that, and they're reusing it and making it again. And it's in their interest because they want to rent it to someone else. And furniture as well, we're seeing companies, there's a company called Furnish, spelled with an E, there's a company called Feather, and they're all renting like household furniture. And even Muji from Japan, they've started renting home office equipment during coronavirus because people don't know whether they're going to be working at home for good, but they want a beautiful home office while they can. So you can rent that home office furniture for 3 months and then return it. And a lot of these programs, these rental programs, you can invest in like really nice designer pieces that you might pay £25 a month for, and you can try it out for a period of 3 months or 6 months and then swap it for something else, or you can keep it, and if you decide that you want to keep it forever, you buy it off them at the end. So
that's brilliant, isn't it? And
it's a really good way to think about it. I'd like to do that because there's a lot of like the designer furniture that I see that is well out of my budget. But if I could rent it,
actually makes it affordable.
It does. It makes it really affordable, and then you can have your dream home exactly the way you want it now, without having that commitment of having to outlay loads in the beginning, or not having that option at all and just buying the cheaper thing because it's cheap and affordable.
And it's good because I suppose it puts the onus back on, as you say, the companies themselves, manufacturing, and
because there's a lot to ask of the consumer to be conscious all the time. Because as you say, where the consumer is consistently tempted into new trends and new fashionable interiors or clothing.
And I don't know about you, but I feel terrible if I don't want something and there's nothing wrong with it. Like if I've got like my coffee table at home at the moment, I bought it for our previous home, which was much, much bigger. So it's far too small for our little living room. And there's nothing wrong with it. And I've wanted to get rid of it for years, but I don't want to throw it out.
No.
And I don't necessarily know if anyone else would want to buy it, because like I say, we've got kids, so it's not in the best condition, but I feel terrible throwing it out. Whereas if I could rent something and I know that it could go back and be reconditioned and remanufactured and passed on, that guilt that we feel as consumers would just be taken out of our hands.
Yeah, definitely. But also it's kind of changing the mindset of consumers in that they don't always, if they need a new coffee table, they don't have to go and buy a brand new one. In actual fact, you can go and get one that's secondhand, but there seems to be a bit of a negative connection to secondhand charity shops, all these different things. But actually, there's nothing wrong with that. And actually, that is.
But this is the great thing about Pinterest as well, because Pinterest now, and YouTube and Instagram and sort of all of these inspirational platforms now are really encouraging people to upcycle. So my sister's just got this new place with her partner, and they've upcycled their previous furniture. So they've just moved in 2 weeks ago, and for the past 2 weeks she's like covered in paint all the time. She's varnishing and sanding and painting. And I went to see it at the weekend, and it looks beautiful. You know, it looks like the type of furniture that you would have gone and bought, and it doesn't look secondhand. It looks beautiful and new. And I think you can make it your own as well. You have that personal touch, and you've got that real love and attachment then to something, because you've put your blood, sweat and tears into upcycling it as well. So it's now more than ever that people are working from home. They have more time to do these types of things where it's not the mad rush of commuting to and from work. We've now got time to look at things and think, right, can that be upcycled? Do I have the time to do that? And actually the cost of doing it is relatively small in comparison to going out and buying something new. And I think that's trending, but it's a really good thing that it's trending, because it is bringing sustainability into focus, which is fantastic.
I think we do need to concentrate a bit more on repair as well, because at the moment, like you say, if your washing machine breaks, it's quite often more expensive to get it repaired than it is to get a new one. And something's gone wrong there. Something in the system has gone wrong. Like our grandparents used to repair everything and and keep it in circulation. And we really need to get to a point where it becomes cheaper again to start repairing things. And I think we're going to see a bit of a trend of repair shops popping up all over the place to try and encourage people to bring things in to get them repaired. So if your coffee table is looking really worn out and marked and scratched, that you'll be able to take it somewhere and get some advice from someone who can help you, put that back into a condition where you're going to be able to carry on using it and be proud of it again, rather than looking at it and it's all like tatty and.
But it sounds like there's lots of kind of opportunities for lots of new companies that repair and
rent and repair.
I mean, why not? Why not? It's really interesting. I suppose with sustainability is such a key thing for lots of different companies, and lots of consumers are kind of latching onto it more and more. It's going to be something that's going to be a focus, I think, for the next 10 years, the next 20 years. So we could talk about it for hours, and it's a really kind of interesting topic, isn't it? And we've raised some really interesting points.
Open the doors to it.
Absolutely. But I just wanted to talk about, whilst we have you here with us, Stacey, I wanted to talk about the fact that you've just recently opened up opened up a co-working female space for entrepreneurs. Which is absolutely really exciting. So can you tell us a little more about that and how you kind of inspired to create this space? And obviously we know it's aimed at female but
so basically, because I've been working online for like a decade now, I just realized that the connection was missing. And because I'm in Devon, so a lot of the London-based bloggers and design writers are all in London and all meet up, but I've always felt a bit disconnected down here in Devon. Wouldn't change it for the world, because I absolutely love living here. But there was just a kind of a disconnect of living my life online and having my whole career online. And I really missed, since I started working from home, I really missed the sort of just the connection from having colleagues and having, you know, people to bounce ideas off of. And I get a lot of inspiration from talking to people. So just having a normal conversation, I'm constantly like writing notes, thinking, oh yeah, that's reminded me, I could write about this, or I could look at that angle. And that was really missing in my life. And I had a great group of girls online who I talked to all the time. And, you know, I kind of floated the idea that I'd wanted to set up a co-working space for years actually, but I just hadn't had the sort of like the confidence to think that I was capable of doing it. And they're so supportive, and they kind of, you know, said to me, look, if you want to do this, just go for it. So I mentioned the idea in September last year, and then just thought, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then 4 months later opened. So I've aimed it to female entrepreneurs, just because I think women have a different set of business challenges. And I think the business world hasn't necessarily been designed for women. So we've kind of come into it, and it already had its own kind of like ecosystem of how it worked. And we're trying to fit in and trying to make it work with the rest of our lives and our other responsibilities. And I think there can be struggles that women have that men don't necessarily have. And it can be quite a nice thing when women can get together and talk about those issues together and kind of share experiences and, you know, lift each other up and kind of be that backbone that other women need. So yeah, I decided to set up this little space. It's only a tiny space, it's 2 small offices, and there's 7 desks. And the timing was really great, and it was going all well at the beginning of last year. And then obviously global pandemic, everyone decided to work from home.
Oh, but maybe now that so many people are now being encouraged to work from home, offices are going to close. So co-working spaces like this will become in demand. So
yeah, well, that's what I thought. I've been through a bit of a roller coaster emotionally over lockdown, because I thought at first, oh great, my ideal customer, my unique market are those who are the absolute best place to work from home, because they already do that. So that I was quite low at the beginning of lockdown, and then I started to think about it a bit more and, you know, look into it a bit more. And there are a lot of articles saying, well, no, hang on a minute, co-working spaces are probably going to, you know, be in more demand as people realise that working from home can have its own challenges.
I think it will definitely be the future. I think it'll be lots more kind of shared spaces. A lot of offices and, you know, places of work may have to close down because of, you know, rent and, you know, lots of things. And I think there will be a lot of opportunity for companies to kind of join forces, share spaces, hot desking here and there. So you kind of started it at the right time.
Exactly.
Where is this co-working space? Is it in Devon, or is it in?
Yeah, it's in Devon. It's in Tonnet.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
So
yeah, and I tried to design it in a way that it doesn't feel like an office. So I've spent, you know, my entire career working in boring office after boring office where they're really uninspiring, and it's not somewhere that I want to hang out really. And so I thought to myself, if I'm going to do this myself, I want to create an environment where it's got to be at least as nice as someone's home office area where they're going to work at home for them to want to come and work here. So I've kind of tried to give it a really homely feel. I've gone with the kind of biophilic design. I've put plants up everywhere. A lot of them aren't real because I'm not the best at keeping plants alive, no matter how hard I try. So according to the principles of biophilic design, as long as you've got greenery, it doesn't necessarily matter if it's not alive. But yeah, I've tried to make it feel like, you know, a space that's full of life and full of energy and light, and somewhere that people want to come and work.
Brilliant. I think we have some pictures of those, do we? At the
end?
I
think you had a presentation, didn't you?
Yeah, I can just run you through some of the things that we've talked about, because obviously we've talked about circular design and biophilic design, and I can just show you some pictures of things that I've collected.
I don't know how long it will be, because unfortunately we're just about run out of time. We've only got a couple of minutes. I can
just quickly whiz you through the pictures.
Super. Yeah, we'll just run through it. But then, of course, if anybody would like more of an in-depth, then we can send this presentation out to you. It's just that we've managed to go over a little bit on time, which is fantastic. We've had so much to talk about. So let's just quickly go into that presentation. and just finish off with that in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, so one of the main trends that I predict coming up at the moment, which is an immediate response to the pandemic, is obviously a focus on hygiene at home. So we're definitely going to see more taps where you're activating it either with your foot or without having to touch it with your hands, toilets that are activated by apps so that people don't have to touch that. It's all things that we already see in bathrooms that are in shopping centres or public spaces, but they'll increasingly be coming into the home. But I don't think that that's going to necessarily be a long-term trend. I think when we talk about our homes now, because of the pandemic, we're going to want it to be a safe space where we're going to feel, safe and secure, and we're going to want to make it more of a sanctuary. So biophilic design, we've seen it over the last few years, but I definitely think we're going to see that more coming into our homes, especially if we end up, being restricted into our homes. We're going to want to bring the outside in and feel a bit more of that freedom of nature coming into the home. So, products that are beautifully made of wood, natural materials. So, yeah, we've already seen biophilic design in the public sphere, in restaurants, hotels, workspaces, but this is all going to be filtering through to our homes even more now. Natural materials, so textures. The fact that we're now told don't touch anything, like when we go out, don't touch anything, sanitize. When we get home to our homes, we're going to really crave tactility and texture. So we're going to be looking at rugs that have got like beautiful deep piles that are a lot more tactile. We're going to be seeing materials like cork or jute or, just really, really textured materials, bamboo, terracotta, a lot of natural wood, a lot of raw finishes. Loads of textures on kitchens, a lot of craftsmanship where we can really feel the texture of the materials. Conscious consumption and mindful purchasing, like we talked about. So there'll be products like this that's made from the waste of the textile industry. These are acoustic panels. Chairs, plastics that are being made from recycled ocean waste or fishing nets here in this particular case. These are the companies that I mentioned where you can rent your furniture from. So we've got Feather, Furnish and Muji. And then that's just the handles that you can find me on if you want to find out more about any of these trends or watch what I'm writing about.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Stacey. And it was great actually that we were able to touch on a few of those things when we were talking about sustainability. But if anybody would like to have this presentation, then please do ask and we can ask Stacey to send that on to you. But that has been fantastic today. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been so
thank you for having me.
To speak to you. And I only wish that we had 3 or 4 hours. I think this could go on for hours. We could just discuss so many different topics with you because it's so interesting to take that different look at the industry from a different point of view, from somebody who is coming at it from a completely different angle, and it makes it just so much more interesting to discuss. So thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you everybody else that's joined us today as well.
Yes, obviously we did say at the beginning that we'd have some time at the end to do kind of like a little round of question and answers, but we don't actually have any questions in the chat at the minute, but if anybody does have any questions for Stacey or myself or Ursula, then we can share our kind of email address, contact details, so you can contact us kind of going forward. As I said, this session has been recorded, so if you were kind of busy doing something else whilst you were listening, then you can always come back to it and watch it again. But yeah, thank you so much, Stacey. It's been an absolute kind of pleasure talking to you, and it's been really interesting actually, hasn't it?
It's been so interesting
to get a different kind of perspective, because obviously we talk a lot with interior designers and architects. It's just nice to get a slightly different, I suppose, angle,
fresh outlook,
interiors. So
absolutely. Well, thank you again, everybody, so much. We are doing another event next week. We will pop that into the chat as well so that you all have the information on that and the link to join to that one, and also the flyer for the rest of our design festival. So please do feel free to join us for our next events that are happening too. We're going to be joined by the sort of the owner, the
Festival
organizer.
Festival
Organizer for Clerkenwell Design. So that's going to be amazing, talking all about Clerkenwell design. And then we're going to be talking about designing with stone surfaces for fireplaces and flooring, but also stone cladding as well for furniture design. So we're going to have lots of hot topics coming up over the next couple of weeks with our virtual design festival. So please do look out in the chat and on all of our socials for that as well. Oh, we've got a question, I think, here. Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining. And if you do have any questions, we'll leave all of our emails in here. Please do feel free to get in touch with us. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Stacey, and thank you everyone for joining. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. The sun is now shining, so enjoy the weather.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Bye.